Today I'm talking to Jason O'Neill, a former top real estate agent with Sotheby's International Realty based in Indianapolis. He's now the COO and president of Century 21 Scheetz. When you listen to Jason talk about sales and the perspective he is able to give clients and all of us, it's no wonder he is so successful. Jason articulates things in a way that brings clients the much needed clarity for successful transactions. I'm excited today to have him on to share his insight. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast is to share knowledge for realtors and raise awareness for Give Back Homes, where real estate professionals work together for social good. Jet Centers Aviation, Bentley Atlanta, Legends Global, thank you for your sponsorship. All right, everybody, this is the Jere Metcalf podcast. Excited today. We have Jason O'Neill, who is a former top Sotheby's International Realty agent, now the Chief Operating Officer and President of Century 21 Scheetz, still in Indianapolis. Jason, with that said, I want to give a brief synopsis on Jason. He's incredibly talented. He has a way of communicating and giving perspective to clients. It's really, really powerful and empowering to us as agents and impactful to our clients. Excited for you to share that with us today. And on that, Jason, thank you for being on the show and thank you for telling us about yourself.
Thank you, Jerry. It's good to see you virtually.
Good to see you. Yeah. So tell us, how did you get in the business?
So I've been in the business for almost 15 years now. And I went to college and graduate school and took a job with AT&T and had 19 bosses and a tiny cubicle in Tampa, Florida. And I decided I wanted more personal connections with people in the community. My parents had been in real estate growing up, and I decided to do it on the side. And it didn't take long for me to realize that I had much more passion for real estate sales and the residential real estate industry than the corporate world, and so I left.
Wow, but you're back in the corporate world, but in a totally different way. So
it's been a crazy few months.
Definitely. So tell us, there's probably a lot I've got a lot on my mind. I know you as Jason, the real estate agent. So I'm going to kind of take this where you want. I know you've got a lot to share and I don't want to miss out on it. But I'd like to start out with just telling us, what are your biggest lessons in, being a top agent in Indianapolis and in the company? Tell us some of the, what is the biggest lesson you've learned in the business so far?
Well, I think that the biggest lesson I've learned is it's about relationships, and it's about deeper, more meaningful relationships. And so everything that I've done that's led to success has been much more about how do I help clients, other agents, and how is that relationship good? I think you've probably heard me say before that a lot of people say time is money. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's true. I think that relationships are money. Relationships are the only things that have written me a check, and everyone's got the same amount of time in a day. And, there's a huge difference between people that are successful and not. And when I think about the relationships, I think about it's not necessarily the duration mm-hmm. of the relationship, but the depth of the relationship. And that goes across all aspects of life. So that's the biggest thing I've learned.
So true. And I'm going to just go ahead and go right there with this. Is we had a conversation the other day that I loved, and you were talking about when people talk about, a commission and how we get paid, and explaining how we get paid on that value versus time. You talked about what I'd like for you to say it, but you kind of gave me almost, I don't like to use scripts, so I hate scripts because it's all about listening, but a way of explaining to your client, this is how it works, is you're not paying me based on my time, you're paying me based on value and results. So elaborate on that.
And you're right. It's not, I think that scripts are effective, and scripts certainly work for people, but not if you don't believe it, not if you don't buy into it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it probably, would be considered a script, but it's also how I run my life and my business. And I think about the entrepreneurial aspect of people, and we'll get to the actual conversation with sellers. But, people get paid in two ways in this world. They get paid based on value creation, or they get paid based on time and effort. And if you get paid based on time and effort, people are always going to try to get you to do something faster or with less effort. And if you get paid based on value, nobody can ever take that away from you, because you're bringing value to the table. And when it really dawned on me, a lot of things that I've done, I've taken running my own business, and then how do I apply my business to my clients' lives and the business of selling their specific house. Mm-hmm. And if you have an assistant, and one of the first investments that an agent is probably going to make is an assistant, part-time or full-time. And I say investment because it really is an investment, and it's probably the best investment because you get to pay it over a period of 24 installments. And if you look at that investment versus what you might get in some of the stock market, if you're factoring what your time is worth, what you might get back, it's an incredible investment. Mm-hmm. So that's what started having that conversation with my clients. And then you realize that maybe you duck out at noon on Friday to go play golf. And the first time, your assistant or a staff person looks at you and is like, why does Jason get to do that? Well, Jason could make zero today, but you're going to make the exact same amount by sitting here and doing what you're supposed to do, because you're paid on time. I'm paid on results and value. Mm-hmm. So I have that conversation with clients and I have it well ahead of time before the fee even comes up. And most of my clients, because I've always done a little bit higher end stuff, they get it. I mean, they're running businesses, or they have people that work for them. And I learned pretty early that the clients that treat their real estate professional as an investment versus the ones that treat it as an expense are so much better to deal with. And they really
the way
are.
You just said, I've never heard it said that way before, but you're exactly right.
And if you go through, and I'll do this from time to time, I'll go through all my past clients, and the ones that you have a bad relationship with, they're the first ones to say, well, hey, we got an offer in your house. It's $700,000. And the first thing out of their mouth is, well, after I pay your fees, it's whatever.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So you get around that with that conversation about the investment.
Yeah. I mean, how do you view it? And you can size it up. I mean, pretty quickly when people are asking you questions, but that's it. That's the and if you're paid on value, and so then you ask questions to get to that, right? So when I meet with people to lead up to that, I'll say, what I've found is there are three motivators to sell a house, and that's going to be time, money, and urgency. So time is going to be, you're trying to hit a specific date. You want to move by the spring because the kids are going to, you want them to finish out the school year. Urgency is, we need this problem to go away now. And money is, well, it's money. You have to make $700,000 on the house, or the deal's not going to happen. And I'll tell that to people, and then I'll say, look, so I'm always going to be honest with you, and I want you to be as open and candid with me as possible. And these three things are going to change, depending on how quickly the house sells. But what I don't want to have happen, and I'll check in with you from time to time to ask you where you are on those three, is for you to tell me that $700,000 is the absolute most important thing we need. And we'll go put together a strategy for $700,000. Then what tends to happen is 45 days, 65 days down the road, I get a call from, you or your spouse, livid because one of you's in Denver, in an apartment, eating chicken wings.
God, this is
and the
so,
other spouse,
yeah.
And the other spouse is here dealing with home showings, the house that isn't selling, kids, practice, homework, and it's creating a strain on your relationship. And I'm in the middle of this. So all of a sudden, what $700,000 was the most important. And what happens is, getting my wife and kids to Denver is the most important thing in the world right now.
Not
And
the
so I try
700.
to,
Wow. And how much does that happen? Our sellers don't know. We go into it, and one thing is important. I mean, that is probably the most common theme for sellers is they go in with one set of motivations, and we might be aware, but the way you've articulated it, that things are going to change. But it's, and sometimes people will say, oh, sellers are just crazy. Sellers aren't crazy. Circumstances change, or their motivators change, or what Chris Voss, the guy that wrote Never Split the Difference. Have you read that book yet? Anyway, I'm slightly obsessed with it, but it's really good. But he calls it the Black Swan. What motivates people, what you think and what you assume, the Black Swan. He calls it, and his company is named, I think it's Black Swan something. But he talks about how there are things you have to remember. There are motivators things you assume are motivating people. There are things are motivating people, and then there are always at least 3 things motivating people that we're unaware of. But it reminds me of the same concept is, somebody comes in with one motivator, and we still as agents will work based on the original motivation they gave us, and potentially lose the sale or lose the job because we're not aware that we think our sellers went crazy when really what motivated them just changed, and we need to be able to help them articulate that to us by the initial communications with them.
and having that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And having that conversation up front is a game changer, because now we have the basis of the 3 things we're going to talk about: money, time, and urgency. Where are you today?
I mean, how many times have we had and then I'm going to shut up and let you keep talking, but I have to say this. How many times have we all had that client that's like, oh, I'm not in a hurry. And then 6 months later, you don't have that, but the rest of us do, because we hear about it all the time. 6 months later, the client has become motivated and anxious, and just the other, it feels like just the other day they didn't care because of this initial conversation. Finish what you were saying, and then I want to go really, I'd literally like to walk through your listing presentation with you. But what were you going to say when I interrupted you?
No, I do have it, but people say the same thing. I don't have to sell. I don't need the money. So that conversation helps. But the other thing is that I do know is that, they say in life, don't mess with anybody's home, their money, or their family. You and I do all 3 at the exact same time.
Yes, we
do,
which is why our job is so intense. Yeah. Home, money, and family. Those are the 3 things that we engage with other people every day, and we're getting paid to mess with their home, money, and family. So no wonder this job is so intense. All that being said, I met you at G&E, and you were doing a for everybody who's listening who doesn't know Sotheby's, that's our global networking event. And Jason was doing a presentation on the listing. It was basically, or what I remember of it, you were talking about your listing presentation. Is that right? That's what the part of it that impressed was on your listing presentation. So that being said, I was just really impressed with the way you articulate things to your clients, the way you really give them a new perspective, and us as agents on remembering how people hire us and how people hire a buyer's agent. They're 2 very different things, and how to, like we've already been talking about, setting expectations. That said, I want to walk through the listing presentation with you, but before I even do that, I'm excited to ask you one question. I'm all about the listing presentation isn't a presentation, it's an interview, and the questions you ask your client are essential. So that being said, do you want to share with us some more of those questions now, or should we just walk through that whole presentation with you?
We'll do kind of a hybrid. We'll walk through the presentation, and I'll talk to you about the key questions that I ask, or I call them the key conversations that I have.
Okay, great.
So Paul comes in, and we'll schedule an appointment. There are a couple meaningful things that happen right away. I'll do the typical research that anybody would do, but I'm always looking to get the appointment, right? When they want to do it. And even if it's the next day, 2 things will happen. We will courier out a listing presentation. And that's probably one of the most highly leveraged things that I've ever done, because it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's incredibly impressive. Mm-hmm. So what that means is we just call a courier service. They come, they pick up the package, and we've got the only thing that changes is a cover letter that says, your name and address on it, and it confirms our meeting time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's going to happen is we will send out a calendar invite via whatever calendaring system you use. And I've found that an incredible amount of clients say that, well, you're the only agent that we interviewed that sent us an iCal invite. Well,
that's really easy to do. Yeah.
Well, a couple things. So it's really easy to do, first of all. Second of all, most of these folks you're dealing with, their life and their business runs off of their calendar.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in their calendar, it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
And then the third thing is, just from a guerrilla marketing perspective, how great of an opportunity to have, marketing consultation with Jason O'Neill at our house in their calendar that they look at it for a week in advance. It's just there.
Exactly.
So you've got your name automatically in front of them. So those are two things that happen immediately, and they're easy, but they're powerful. And part of the motivation for sending the documents first is that when I get to the house, I'll be able to say, hey, did you get the stuff that I sent out?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, thanks for sending it. I'd venture to say that 70% of the time they don't even read it. But I'll say, well, do you have any questions? They're like, nope, it's all good. So now we've pretty much covered the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Because every agent's going to go in there and talk to them about marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just there. So all the marketing pieces and everything we do in terms of online population and Zillow or whatever the case may be is in there. Then I'll get to the house and just do what everybody else does. I ask them if they want me to remove my shoes, and we'll generally do a quick tour of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of get to know each other, establish rapport, and then we will sit down. For me, it's ideally at a table. It doesn't matter which table, but I need a table. I tend to get thrown a little off sometimes and has this ever happened to you when somebody's like, well, let's sit in the living room. And next thing you know, you're in this like big fluffy chair and you're
kind of all leaned back and your stuff is way over here.
You're 10 feet away from them.
Right.
And then like the husband's on one side, the wife's on the
other side. Well, then they always take longer. It always takes longer because it's there. Everybody stops getting to the point. When you're at a table, everybody's kind of more to the point. Like, okay, we're at a table. Here's our stuff. What are we going to talk about? Let's be done. Let's go. It's a lot less comfortable, which in some ways can be good. What's that?
I always try to be at a table. And then we'll sit down and I'll talk about, the first real conversation is what it is that I sell. And, I believe that a lot of people don't even know what they're buying when they hire you.
Mm-hmm.
What do they, do you understand what you're paying me for? Well, I'll sell my house. That's a byproduct of it. But really what I sell is clarity, confidence, and commitment. So those three things, I aim to bring clarity to an otherwise confusing situation. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on in your life. The job transfer happened. You want a bigger house, a smaller house. You don't know how to do it. And I'm going to provide you with confidence. I mean, the primary thing that I sell is confidence, so that you can go on with your life, do what it is that you need to do, and know that there is somebody who is committed, the third C, who is committed to getting this deal done, committed to seeing it all the way through. So we'll have that conversation. And through that, depending on who the person is, it'll be pretty evident that we're now on a totally different level, and that level trumps marketing, pricing, commission. We're having a business relationship merger discussion, and sometimes around then we might have the discussion of, to be clear, we're not selling a house here, because sometimes the emotional get into it, right? My kids grew up here. We got to have a certain amount of money. I'll say, well, we're not selling a house. We're liquidating an asset. And with certain clients of mine, especially the business the folks that are entrenched in business, that's a big aha. They're like, yeah, you're right. We're not selling a house. We're liquidating an asset. Because people tend to get caught up in the small stuff, right?
Now that's something you've got to say up front, because I would think if you bring that out down the road, that might come across as insensitive if you haven't said it before.
Right.
I mean, I can think of, some situations where if you say that at the wrong time, like if you're already down that path, you need to make sure. I'm just saying you need to make sure you say that up front. So when you say that again, if things get a little tense, it's not in your face. It's a reminder. Like, remember, we're not selling a house. We're liquidating an asset. We've got it. Yeah. Or you tell me, but that's kind of my gut reaction to that.
It depends on the person, but that conversation is a good reminder, a good one to have when you're going through that really, really difficult part of the negotiation. That part of the negotiation when people are getting all hung up over $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depending on the price. I mean, that's a lot of money, but depending on the price point, that might be a small gap. And that's where we'll kind of go into the negotiation here for a second. And that's where, you're talking about, hey, look, let's focus on the big number. Okay, let's focus on the $1 million. The $1 million offer that we have in our hand. Let's not focus on the $30,000 more that you want. Right? Remember, we're liquidating an asset. There's more to it than the price. And then when that happens, I'll also have a conversation about, I'm good with whatever you want to do. My job here is to make sure that you see the entirety of the picture.
Exactly.
So you tell me you're willing to risk $1 million to gain $1,030,000. I'm good with it. But if we go back again, I mean, you could end up with zero, like guaranteed $1 million.
Exactly.
Maybe $1,030,000, maybe zero.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I've had this conversation. I think a lot of times there's the unfortunate assumption that we're attached to the deal as real estate agents, and some real estate agents are, and it's important that we're not, and that our clients understand that I'm not here to be attached to the deal. I'm here like just that, and that goes back to the first conversation: clarity, confidence, commitment. And when they understand, we're liquidating an asset, but you're liquidating the asset. I'm here to provide clarity, confidence, commitment through that process, so that they understand they're liquidating the asset. It's their asset, and they can liquidate however they like. I'm here to give you information to make the right decisions, which is kind of funny because that's in part of my mission statement about empowering my clients to. That's another day, but I love it. It's all coming together. All right, so you go through that conversation, and where do you go from there? How does that listing appointment?
So then we'll go into the money, time, and urgency. So now we're having the conversation that we just talked about, and I'll gauge where they are, and I'll ask them. So it's the money, time, urgency. What's your ideal situation? How does this work perfectly? Short of somebody coming in and offering you 120% of list price and giving you flexible terms.
Right.
But that's where you'll get to the, really in a perfect world, we'd get this thing sold in 45 days, and maybe we could rent it back for 2 months. Why? And you have some real conversations. And knowing that what we want to do here, the point of this exercise is that let's start with your perfect, your ideal, and let's come to grips with the fact that the ideal doesn't exist, right? It's fiction in our head. And then let's go after it. And I'll explain to you kind of the most likely scenarios. And then I'll say, look, there are 3 things that once we do get an offer, okay, there are 3 things that are important. Price, timing, and security.
I love your 3s: price, timing, and security.
I probably don't really remember many more than 3.
Well, neither do our clients. So,
well, this is interesting. So, and I do believe this. If you get those 3 nailed down, everything else will fall into place. It always does. And so we'll have a kind of a loose discussion of, we get an offer in. These are the 3 things we're going to be focused on. There's going to be some stuff. They want some equipment, whatever. But the rest of the stuff it'll fall into place. But then when we get an offer in, I'm going to talk to you. If you bring me an offer, I'm going to say, Jerry, thanks for sending me the offer. There are 3 things that are important to my people: price, timing, and security. because again, the buyer and the buyer's agent, they're thinking about the refrigerator and a lease back and who knows what else. I mean, they're thinking about a million different things. Title insurance, homeowners insurance, home warranties. I mean, the rest of that stuff is insignificant in the big scheme of things. Well, that's great. Well, that'll all fall into place if we can get, for good on price, my people feel good taking the house off the market and the timing works for their family. Then we can get this thing done.
Exactly. I mean, that's always the case.
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep the focus on where that I want it to be. So we'll have that conversation, the sellers and I will, and that's usually pretty informative. And then we'll go into, I'll ask them again about the packet. And so, did you see the packet that we sent out with all the marketing? And yeah, everything looks really great. And so, yeah, here's the reality of it though, that all that stuff in there, anybody can copy it with deep enough pockets. I mean, professional photography in the Indianapolis market runs between $60 and $700. The photographers that I use are in that upper end. Our brochures are a little bit nicer. We probably proofread the language a little bit better. But anybody can copy the marketing. But then there's a difference between marketing and selling, right? And to me, to Jason, selling is what happens when I am face-to-face with a buyer or a buyer's agent, or on the phone, face-to-face or on the phone with a buyer or a buyer's agent. Marketing is everything we do to get face-to-face or on the phone with a buyer or a buyer's agent. And I don't think enough people talk about the selling aspect. And here's why. If the phone rings and somebody calls from, say, Zillow, and they get me, it's why my name's on the front of the house, and why I try to be the exclusive person on as many of my listings as I can, because I have one motivation: to sell your house. If another agent gets that lead through a different source, their motivation is to sell a house. So everything that I'm doing is asking some of the same questions I've asked you. What's important for the buyer's agent? Because I find a lot of what we have to do is help the buyer's agent, because especially on high-end deals, a lot of people just kind of, I've had deals where people have almost stumbled upon.
They become a little task-oriented.
Yeah. So, and that is what I've found in talking to my clients after we've, years later, everyone has the marketing conversation. Nobody has the selling conversation. Like, it's a bad word. I mean, we're in these deals. We're selling houses.
Yep.
And
we're liquidating assets, actually. But right.
We're selling.
Don't let me throw you off. Don't let me throw you off, because I want to hear this. All right, go ahead.
No, it's interesting to me because nobody else is really having that conversation.
So what is that conversation? What do you explain to them about selling because obviously everybody's so focused on the marketing?
That anybody can market. Anybody can market. But who do you want representing you when the phone rings?
Exactly.
Like who is going to give you the confidence? And it gets back to clarity, confidence, and commitment.
Right.
Who have you interviewed? And I don't need to have this conversation, but I would if I did. So of all the people you've interviewed, who do you absolutely trust the most if the phone rings to get somebody into your house?
Right.
I mean, do you trust the person that came in there and talked about their just listed, just sold postcards for the last hour?
Right.
And their internet
or talking about things you don't really care about except how great they are. Yeah.
Right. And you kind of said it that our marketing is great. It's better than most. But marketing isn't going to sell the house. Right? It's an agent-centric business.
I love that, because all the time, like, real estate is relationship-based, period. It just is, yeah.
And you have to have a trusting relationship. You've got to be honest and open and candid. And it is, I mean, we've all had deals where the trust gets lost. Mm-hmm. And that's tough.
And,
right?
I think it's important I always talk about in our business, and that took me a while to learn this. I've always loved other agents, but I've never really understood and respected this component. But as a real estate agent, I do actually bring this to my listing appointment. I'd love to know if you kind of do the same thing. Is I talk about being an agent in our relationship with other agents. That it's important to you as a seller to know that I have strong relationships with agents in this city and have a good reputation, which it's not for me to tell them I have a good reputation, but that I value relationships with other real estate agents, which is actually not as common as it should be. Because when my name's on a sign, if the person calling wants to do business with me, it's going to be a lot easier to get them in the door and get a deal done than if they don't trust me or I don't have that kind of rapport. I mean, that's huge. I haven't always, but I have over time, and as the price point goes up in my real estate, I've found that is essential, and it's important for our clients to understand that. Do you bring that in? Do you bring that part of the conversation into your listing appointment? Or did you? Because you don't have to do those anymore.
Well,
as the COO. But no, go ahead.
No, but I do and always have. And
because it's not just you trust me, Mr. Seller, but you trust me because other people trust me. But go ahead.
No, but it's true though. But for me, it's been, and I'm a believer that everyone should get involved. For me, it's been an easier conversation because I've been on the board of directors for our board, and I'm president of the board right now, and so that gives me a director seat at NAR. And I'll tell my clients, what does that mean to you? Nothing, other than my peers recognize me and trust me to go out and represent them. So
exactly.
Think about it.
Exactly.
All the other agents in the market have hired me to go represent them. I mean,
exactly.
You should too.
Exactly.
Right?
Do you say that, or do you imply that?
No, I actually just thought about it right now, but it's true, and I think it gets applied.
Yeah. Exactly. So you walk through that, you talk to them about marketing versus selling, and really drive home that anybody can do the marketing. I mean, you not being cynical, but if you got deep enough pockets, anybody can make their marketing look as good. What's important in this is that I'm selling your house, and that now I'm still trying to wrap my head around, because I have my own way of doing it. But is there anything that you say about your selling, or you've already sold yourself, so they're just nodding their heads and you're moving on and they're signing the listing agreement?
Yeah, they're with me at that point. I mean, if there's any pushback, I mean, it's generally they're just digesting it. Like, this makes sense. Like, this makes more sense to us than some of the other folks.
And you've explained to them how real estate actually works, as opposed to everybody hoping they give the best dog and pony show and get the job to the client whose expectations have been set too high, who's going to ultimately just be disappointed.
Yeah.
So, and so when you leave that listing appointment, do you find you usually get the listing presentation signed there, or or do you bring the listing presentation, the listing agreement, or do you send it in DocuSign, or how do you take it from there?
I try to send it through .loop. I will try to
.loop. God knows. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if we should edit that out.
That's all right. I like .loop. I've been on it for about a year.
I like DocuSign, but anyway, let's edit all that out, Isaac. I don't want to get in trouble. All right, go ahead.
But I'll send it to them. I will typically send the documents to them electronically. I might fill out a sales disclosure while we're there, trying to get something signed. But two reasons for that.
So a sales, so you sent them the disclosure that's a good idea.
What I do, so in that packet gets couriered out, there are going to be.
That was a question I had for you. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So I put a sales disclosure and a utility estimate in there.
Okay.
And in the cover letter, it asks for those to be filled out prior to me showing up. Now, do I really need those? They think I need it to evaluate the house sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, if they've filled it out and signed it, I know my job's going to be easy. Like, they're ready to go. I've never had somebody fill out a utility estimate and a sales disclosure and then not want to list the house.
Wow, so exactly. That just gives you their level of motivation.
Yeah. And I think we'll ask for them to have a key ready too. So if I see a key on the counter with my documents, we're we're good to go. But I want them conditioned to the electronic documents up front, because we get an offer and it's 8:00 on Thursday night. I don't want to be walking them through. Like we can test it all out on the listing agreement.
Exactly.
So I do it that way, and it's easy. But at that point, we're setting up. The next steps would be staging. So I have always done staging on pretty much every single house, and I pay for that.
When you say you pay for that, how extensive does that get?
It's about $100 per listing.
Okay. I pay $200 per listing for staging, but mine's just a staging consultation, and it's the time and the plan and all of that good stuff. But you get agents who go in and actually move furniture around and stage the house.
So I'm the same as you, and while I think I could probably do it, there are, I think about 6 years ago, I decided that I would never take a picture again, and I like photography, but I don't have any. I don't have any interest in my clients seeing me holding a camera. Right? It doesn't work for me, and that's more like time and effort, labor.
Exactly.
And then with regard to the staging, I always found it too difficult for me to go out and be like the guy that's going to help them sell their house, the guy that's going to provide clarity, confidence, and commitment, and then be like, your wall colors all look ugly.
Exactly.
Or, hey, probably a good idea, at least in certain parts of our market, to take deer heads off the wall. I mean, them are fighting words.
Right. You're exactly right. Let somebody else say that.
I pay somebody the $100 or $200, and they'll. And I do think that there are people that I certainly have met with people who want a real estate agent to give them decorating advice, because they think it's like a free consultation.
They assume I am, but yeah. Well, now what do you do in the listing appointment? And then I have some better questions for you, but I'm curious. Yeah. You ship at these listing appointments like, well, we just want you to tell us what to do to the house. And I'm like, what? It's kind of like, well, what does that have to do with any? I'm not a decorator. I'm a real estate agent. I got a great, and I tell them, here's a few tips. I actually have a sheet I've actually personally compiled that I send to them. But, you get these agents who come in and want to stage. I have a good friend who's an agent who stages. I love her, but I'm not going to come in and do what I'm not good at. I mean, I'm good enough at it, but I do not have the ability that a professional stager does to look at your house and save you the kind of money they do. And they can remember the sofa or the whatever in this room, that it will fit perfectly in this corner and make the room look great. That's not my profession. I don't do that every day the way these people do. But what were you going to say?
No, exactly what you did. I mean,
I kind of sell the stagers. I don't unsell myself, because the agent they talk to before me is a great stager. I just remind them I'm a great real estate agent. I have great people around me who do things better than I do, like stagers who actually studied it and learned it and do it.
And you're paying them.
And I'm paying them.
I think that there's...
And I always make it clear that I'm paying them, because there are a lot of agents who don't pay them, so they come in and give your clients a sales pitch. I think it's important that we pay them, and they understand, like, you're my client to consult my client, and you either consult them and you do a good job, or because if you go in and you pitch them, all of the trust is gone and lost. And I mean, it never goes well that way. Even if the stager knows what their job is, their agenda, if they're not being paid, is going to be to get paid. So we've got to be sure their agenda is to do a good job for our clients, and let's all get this done and get this house sold. So
that's right.
Anyway, okay. Question while we're on the listing. You do more listings, I'm assuming, than buyers, or you did. No, you don't have to do either. I shouldn't say you don't have to do. I'm half teasing, but on that, so I think something that's really important, the biggest complaint, as most of us know and we all should know about real estate agents, is lack of communication. What is your system, or what do you implement to ensure, or do you have one, or how do you ensure that you keep consistent communication with your clients once you list the property?
So, and I tell them that, they're going to be communicating with me and my assistant, who is going to be able to take care of documents, processes, feedback, systems. The communication with me is going to be touching base. This is what the market looks like. Or when we have an offer, then we're going to talk a lot. So we'll set up a tempo that we're going to talk. I ask them what they want or need to, but I try to reach out at least once every week and a half. And usually there's something to say, but even if it's a text message or a phone call, just that, here's where we are. And I'll set the expectation too. Like, hey, we're going to leave the house on the market for 30 days, and then we're going to look at the pricing. And it does depend on the fluidness of the market. I mean, if you've got a house in a segment of the market that is really quickly moving, and it's not selling, you got to communicate regularly. If you've got a $2 million listing and 8 of those sell in a given year, and we can't talk every week. I mean, that's
right.
Senseless.
Exactly.
And people get it. I think so. It's setting the expectations about where the market is and knowing, and that's, they've got to have the confidence that if there's something important to say, I will say it.
That's awesome. And do you have anything? Go ahead.
And then my conversations are just, hey, just checking on you. How you feeling about things? How we doing? Anything change in the, the urgency, the timing, the price? I mean, the way I see it, we're still good on price, but we can make this problem go away tomorrow if you want. But we can make it go away.
You're exactly well said. You're exactly right. And what about on the follow-up? Do you have any emails to go out or anything like that? Or some people will set them up just to, and this can be the double-edged sword where you set them up in Atlanta. I don't even know the name of it anymore. It used to be called Client Gateway under MLS. I think they call it Concierge or something. But where you set them up so they're automatically updated every time a house sells in their neighborhood or goes on the market in their neighborhood, or at Sotheby's we have those market updates where they can see how many views are coming in from Zillow or Atlanta Fund or our website or whatever.
So I've never perfected that system because everything kind of comes from disparate places. I set myself up on those neighborhood market reports, and then I'll forward it to them, which is definitely more labor, but it's a touch.
It's a good idea.
It's a touch. It's just from my phone. Hey, Jerry, FYI, neighbors just lowered their price. Let's catch up.
Yes. And then it doesn't, you've seen it before they've seen it, which sometimes they see it first on Zillow. No matter what we do, they're just going to see some stuff first. And I think that comes back into play on, our job is clarity, commitment, and certainty, not getting the latest Zillow update before you do. That's not what I get. I don't get paid to get the price reduction before you. I got it. I have access to it before you do. But I think it's important for them to understand that it's getting it. We get it and we know it, but we're providing the perspective on it that you don't have because, of course, that sounds a little condescending, but our clients don't have because they haven't had the experience that we've had to implement and get the results they're looking for. And the way
and the thing is that I think a lot of clients need to be reminded of back in listing appointment conversation is the buyers are going to know more about the market than I will, and their agent will, and that's one of those tough realities for real estate agents to admit, but it's true. And if a buyer wants to live in your neighborhood, they are driving the streets every night. They're talking to the neighbors. They're on nextdoor.com. They get it. I'm dealing with a huge statistical area, right? The buyer is dealing with one school district,
exactly,
and one price point, which makes it like 2 or 3 neighborhoods.
Exactly.
So the whole notion of the real estate agent being the one to find the house now exists if the house is not on the market. It doesn't exist when the house is on the market because they're not secrets. Like, we put signs in front of them.
Exactly. And they go online, and they go on other websites, and they go in MLS, and they go in Zillow, and they go everywhere. So, exactly. But I've had clients, I've told this story before, but I have clients, I've had a client, and she had it for sale by owner, and the for sale by owner just wouldn't work with other agents. She wouldn't work with agents at all. And I was like, look, I'm going to have to step back. I'm not going to keep you from a house. She wouldn't buy it. She's like, I'm not buying the house without you. And she's like, it's my dream house, but I'd rather not have it if I can't work with you because I don't have the confidence, clarity, or your commitment to do. I mean, that's really what it was. If I don't have you by my side, I'd rather not take the risk of buying the house and not know what I'm doing. So it's huge.
Right.
So.
Right. And so, you're basically entrenched in their home buying life experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's where those relationships are so valuable.
Exactly. But like they say, don't mess with anybody's home, family, or money. And we get to do that every day. Love it. But that's exactly what I love about this business is we get to do those things because they are nothing short of character building. So I want to ask you a few things because we're starting to run out of time, and I want to get a little bit of perspective from you on a few more things. Coming in this business, what has been? Well, first of all, remind me how many years have you been in this business?
Almost 15.
So yeah, I thought I'm about 15. I think I'm 14. So that being said, what is your biggest aha about the real estate, or specifically being a real estate agent?
How this might have changed a couple weeks ago, but right now I'm in awe of all of us that actually do this on a day-to-day basis, because to be a real estate agent is, it takes an incredible amount of guts. So you have to wake up one day and decide that I can add value to the real estate transaction.
Right.
And in adding value to the real estate transaction, somebody's going to pay me, and they're going to pay me enough that I can make a living off of it. So that's amazing to me when you think about the 1.3 million realtors that are out there. That I've always considered myself as I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be exceptionally good at selling real estate. And there are a lot of us out there, and, not everybody makes it, and there's some bad seeds and people that give us a bad reputation. But the ones that give a good reputation, I think the relevance that they bring to their clients' lives, their communities, their sponsoring teams, it's cool. We've got an amazing business. If you're good at marketing, there's a spot for you. If you're good at technology, there's a spot for you. If you're good at, relationships, there's a spot for you.
You're right.
You can set up business wherever you want.
Well, and
so that's been the biggest aha, because when I started, Jerry, I was not involved with the board at all. I just thought that was kind of like a tax, and I pay them for the MLS, and I'm just like, I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a big wheel with a lot of cogs.
Definitely. What is so we've got your biggest aha. Can you give us, and this may be putting you on the spot a little, but do you have a story? I love to hear about, you got into the business and you went through something that seemed like it was, the worst thing ever, whether it's getting fired from a listing or a deal going bad. And because of the lesson you learned, or because of what actually happened in the transaction, it ended up being one of the greatest lessons and greatest deals you ever did. That's any kind of mistake or anything challenge you've overcome that really gave you, put you at the next level in this business, or lessons you've learned from this business.
I've got a lot of those. I'm trying to think of, I've got some embarrassing moments. I don't know that those turned out to be like, great lessons. They were reminders of lessons I probably learned, years ago. But a really, I think a great story is on the communication and kind of sticking with it. I picked up a listing from some folks that had expired, and it was a decent agent that had it, and they were friends with the lady, and they just felt that it didn't have her attention. They'd lost confidence. And I got the I got the listing, and we became friends. They became great clients and really good friends. And this lady didn't do anything wrong, except probably wasn't as forthcoming about pricing and didn't communicate well. And they would have, and I now know that these are the most loyal people ever. So that was a reminder to me, because I sold their house for $570,000. They bought a house for $650,000. They then sold that house for about the same price, maybe a little bit more, and downsized, and bought a house for $400,000. I sold that house, and they went to Florida, and I referred them down to an agent down there, and I got a referral fee. And then, every time I'm down in Florida, we get together for drinks.
4 transactions.
And that from just paying attention.
Pay attention. There goes one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess another one is maybe a better story. I lost a listing appointment one time. And the guy called me up and said, hey, Jason, we decided to go somewhere else. Going to go a different direction. Really appreciate your time. Let me know if you want to talk. I pick up the phone and I'm like, Bill, heck, I want to talk. What happened? So we end up, he's like, I can't right now, but I'm going to be in the car for a bit on Saturday. Let's schedule a conversation. So we did, and he picks up the phone, and we were friendly enough as if you spent an hour and a half with somebody. And he said, look, I want to let you know that what I do for a living is I'm a consultant, business consultant, and I consult people on the acquisition and retention of customers. A lot of that's presentation, and so I do that myself, and I get paid over $500,000 a year to do it. And I'm not telling you that to let you know that I make a lot of money. I'm telling you that I'm really good at what I do.
Wow. So, yeah. This is good.
I was like, okay, well, let's talk. So a couple things. He was like, my wife and I completely believe that you or the other person would be absolutely proficient and do a good job selling our house. And like, okay. So what happened? And he said, well, just, a couple things. One, you never asked me how I was going to make a decision. He's like, the other person didn't either. But, at the end of the day, my wife likes them better. But you didn't ask me how I was going to make a decision. I was like, okay, go on. And he said, I had a scorecard in my pocket, and I would have shown it to you. How does somebody rank? He was like, you obviously, we've talked. I know you're a competitor and played sports growing up. He's like, would you ever get into a game if you didn't know how to win? And I said, well, I guess I wouldn't get into a game if I didn't know how to win. He goes, there you go. Flat out ask somebody. How are you going to be making a decision? So, like, had you asked me how I was making a decision, I would have shown you, my 5 key criteria and how the scale I had 1 through 5, and I was just going to add them up. And so the other thing
is analytical. Yeah.
And talk about analytical. When we talked about pricing, he's like, I assume you had all the data in your file. He lives in my neighborhood. He's like, I know you live in the neighborhood, so you know what's going on. He said, but when we talked about price, it was just, and Jerry, the conversation was, hey, where's your head on price? And he's like, probably about $550,000. Maybe we list it a little higher. If we can get within a couple percentage points of that, I'd feel good. And I'm like, that's, my numbers support that. And so we're on the same page there, and then moved on.
Right.
He's like, you just felt that we were on the same page. You didn't want to back it up or didn't ask if I had any topics. So he explained to me this theory about, it's called yellow light. He said what happens is the yellow light theory is that most people see a yellow light and they speed up and go through it. And the appropriate thing to do is
I'm gonna write that down.
hit the brakes, have the conversation, and move on. And here's what he was talking about. So that happened with the pricing. And he said, I asked you about virtual tours, and you just said, no, we don't do them. This was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. So no, I don't do virtual tours. I think they're kind of a security risk. The quality is kind of iffy, and it doesn't always make the house look good. He's like, you hit the gas and went right through that yellow.
Wow. Kept running those yellow lights, yeah.
He said, a lot of people do that, but that's an appropriate time to say, hey, we don't do virtual tours. These are the reasons why. Is that going to be a problem, or should I move on?
I love that.
And it was like, wow. So now people ask about open houses. Do you do open houses? No, I don't do open houses. They're neighbors, whatever people say. Just because I for most of my listings, they're not that effective. Is that going to be a problem, or should we continue? And if it's a problem, we're going to figure it out right then and there. I want an agent who's going to hold my house open every single Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 5. I'm not your guy. So let's shake hands, call it a day.
And we could go. Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's in the back of your head and we determine that it's not a deal breaker or a showstopper, then let's move on.
Wow, that's a huge lesson.
So that was a good one. And so we talked for a while, and he critiqued some of my stuff, and so I still use a lot of that to this day. But then the house that they didn't list with me, but they bought a very expensive home and ended up using me to sell that new house.
Wait, say that again. So what happened?
They bought a very expensive home, and they ended up using me to sell that house.
Oh, good.
Years later.
Oh, good. So it all came around anyway. That's a great story. Oh, wow. Okay, so do you have a CRM or do you use a CRM, or how do you track all of that? You seem pretty analytical.
Yes, I use Daylight, but it's not really real estate. It's for Apple Mac computers only, but it's great. I love it.
Okay. What do you like about it?
You can do anything. It's basically it takes your contacts and calendars and puts them on steroids, and then you can build forms. So like we have a form in there that you get an offer in, and you could do this in Excel or anything, but this is a really valuable thing, and it'll build. We'll fill out a form and it'll say offer price, date, terms, all the key points of the offer, and when a seller gets the offer, they get our one deal, our one-page sheet that has the important terms, and then they'll get the whole offer, so that they can get basically the executive summary of that offer in a one-page thing. So we just built that into the database, but you can do that in Word or Excel or anything. But that's been really, really valuable.
Oh wow. Okay, that's interesting. So I've not heard Daylight. I hear a lot of them, but not. Contactually is one I'm hearing a lot lately, but not Daylight. Yeah. And I've got an Apple. So, and what's one book you recommend we read as we listen to you? What's the one book you would recommend? You know what mine is.
Yeah. I tend to read a lot of fiction. And I'm reading a great book right now, and I can't remember the name of it. It's by the guy from the editor of Fast Company. My favorite business book of all time it's dated now, but The Pursuit of Wow by Tom Peters.
The Pursuit of Wow. Okay, cool. Why do you like that book?
Well, it's in snippets, right? The guy writes 3 sentences at a time or a couple pages at a time, and it just, I'm a big believer in, as you can tell by my 3 things or the things that I talk about. I mean, nothing I do is complicated. I think that simplicity is king, and what we're trying to do is make the things better for the clients and for ourselves, and make things a little bit more simplified. So Tom Peters does a great job of taking really complex ideas and just saying, he's the type of guy to say, it's the customer, stupid. I mean, you're getting all caught up in everybody else, but what is the home seller really? I mean, they want to sell their house in the shortest amount of time, fewest hassles, and they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So, what is the one thing that we listeners should take? If there's one thing you want us to get out of this, what would that be?
That it's about relationships. Build the relationships with your fellow agents, with your past clients, and make sure that you're like the story you told, that you're a meaningful part of their business.
Awesome.
Or your business is a meaningful part of their life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. Did we leave anything out? Yeah. We left a lot out, actually. I could tell there's a lot more that you could give us. That was
We're gonna do this again.
let's
We'll
do.
this again.
Awesome.
Once I get settled into
We'll
my new
do
role.
it. We'll do it, and we'll learn. Well, what I want to learn in the next interview is what you're learning about what other people do and the common denominators of successful and unsuccessful real estate agents, because I bet you're gonna get a lot of new perspective in your new role.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Just thinking about, I now have 50 employees and 360 agents that I'm responsible for. And I take that very, very seriously. Like, I feel responsible for making sure that they make more money and do better and grow. And it's pretty cool.
Well, make sure they listen to this. I can't wait to hear it. It's good advice for all of them too. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason.